Money, power, and success, they had it all. But today, these billionaires have swapped their luxurious mansions for prison cells. From Wall Street titans to tech entrepreneurs, these wealthy individuals went from controlling global empires to living behind bars. Their stories involve massive fraud schemes, political corruption, and criminal conspiracies that shocked the world. Together, they represent over $100 billion in lost wealth and devastating financial impacts on countless lives. In this video, we'll explore the dramatic rise and fall of 20 billionaires who proved that not even enormous wealth can shield you from justice. From Sam Bankman-Fried's crypto empire collapse to Elizabeth Holmes's Silicon Valley deception, these are the richest billionaires who ended up in prison. 20. Alan Stanford, net worth at peak, $2.20 billion. Stanford Financial Group founder Alan Stanford orchestrated one of history's largest Ponzi schemes, second only to Bernie Madoff's fraud. His Caribbean-based scheme promised investors impossibly high returns through certificates of deposit at Stanford International Bank. Stanford used his clients' money to fund an extravagant lifestyle, including private jets, luxury yachts, and even his own cricket tournament in the Caribbean. The facade crumbled in 2009 when the SEC charged him with defrauding investors of $7 billion. In 2012, he was convicted on 13 counts of fraud and sentenced to 110 years in federal prison. Stanford's downfall was particularly dramatic given his previous status as a knighted businessman in Antigua and Barbuda, though his knighthood was later stripped. Today he resides in a high-security federal prison in Florida, with all his assets frozen and his empire dismantled. The Stanford case highlighted the vulnerability of offshore banking systems and led to increased scrutiny of international financial institutions. Many of his victims, including retirees and small investors, lost their life savings, and recovery efforts continue to this day through various legal channels. His case serves as a stark reminder of how charismatic figures can exploit trust and regulatory gaps in the international financial system. 19. Mikhail Khodorkovsky, net worth at peak, $15 billion. Once Russia's wealthiest man, Mikhail Khodorkovsky's story epitomizes the volatile nature of business in post-Soviet Russia. As the head of Yukos Oil Company, he transformed a state-owned enterprise into Russia's largest oil producer. His wealth and influence grew exponentially during Russia's privatization in the 1990s, but his political activism and advocacy for Western-style democracy put him at odds with Vladimir Putin's government. In 2003, he was arrested on charges of fraud and tax evasion. Many observers viewed his prosecution as politically motivated, designed to neutralize a potential political rival to Putin. Khodorkovsky spent 10 years in Siberian prison camps under harsh conditions, during which time Yukos was dismantled, and its assets were largely absorbed by state-owned companies. His imprisonment became a symbol of selective justice in Russia and drew international attention to the challenges facing Russian business leaders who opposed the Kremlin. In 2013, Putin unexpectedly pardoned him, likely to improve Russia's image before the 2014 Sochi Olympics. Since his release, Khodorkovsky has lived in exile, continuing his political activism and supporting pro-democracy movements in Russia. His case demonstrates how quickly fortunes can change when business interests clash with political power. 18. Wu Xiaohui, net worth at peak, $3 billion. The rise and fall of Wu Xiaohui, former chairman of Anbang Insurance Group, reads like a modern Chinese morality tale. Starting as a small car insurance company, Wu transformed Anbang into a global investment powerhouse within a decade. His most notable acquisition was New York's historic Waldorf Astoria Hotel for $1.95 billion. WU's ambition seemed limitless as he married into China's political elite and pursued ever larger international deals. However, his aggressive expansion strategy relied heavily on selling high-yield investment products to Chinese consumers, raising red flags with regulators. In 2018, Wu was sentenced to 18 years in prison for fraudulent fundraising and embezzlement. The court found that he had defrauded investors of more than $10 billion through illegal operations. His conviction came amid Beijing's broader crackdown on financial risk and corrupt business practices. The Chinese government seized control of Anbang and renamed it Dajia Insurance Group. WU's case highlighted the risks of rapid expansion in China's financial sector and the government's determination to rein in what it saw as excessive corporate borrowing. The fate of Anbang became a cautionary tale for other Chinese companies with global ambitions, demonstrating that even politically connected business leaders weren't immune to Beijing's regulatory oversight. 17. Sam Bankman-Fried, net worth at peak, $26 billion. The spectacular collapse of Sam Bankman-Fried's crypto empire stands as one of the most dramatic falls from grace in financial history. As founder of FTX and Alameda Research, SBF, as he was known, became the face of cryptocurrency's mainstream acceptance. His carefully crafted image as a scrappy, philanthropic billionaire who slept on beanbags and drove a Toyota Corolla made him a media darling. However, beneath this facade lay a complex web of fraud and misappropriation of customer funds. When FTX imploded in November 2022, investigations revealed that customer deposits were being used to fund Alameda's risky trades, luxury real estate purchases, and political donations. The collapse wiped out an estimated $32 billion in value and sent shockwaves through the crypto industry. In 2023, SBF was convicted on 7 criminal counts, including fraud and money laundering. His trial exposed the stark contrast between his public persona and private actions, revealing how he exploited the crypto industry's lack of regulation. The case has led to calls for stricter oversight of cryptocurrency exchanges and highlighted the dangers of concentrated power in the hands of charismatic tech founders. His downfall serves as a cautionary tale about the risks of unregulated financial innovation and the importance of corporate governance. 16. Raj Rajaratnam, net worth at peak, $1.30 billion. Raj Rajaratnam's fall from grace marked the biggest insider trading case in a generation. As founder of the Galleon Group hedge fund, 15. Bo Xilai, net worth at peak, $1.20 billion. Bo Xilai's downfall represents one of China's biggest political scandals in recent history. As Communist Party chief of Chongqing, he was known for his charismatic leadership style and ambitious development projects. His family amassed considerable wealth through business connections and political influence. However, his career imploded in 2012 following his wife's involvement in the murder of British businessman Neil Haywood and subsequent allegations of corruption and abuse of power. Bo's trial revealed extensive bribery, embezzlement, and abuse of official positions, leading to a life sentence in 2013. The case exposed the intertwining of wealth and political power in China's system and the risks of challenging the central leadership's authority. Beyond the criminal charges, Bo's fall represented a significant political purge, eliminating a potential rival to Xi Jinping's leadership. The scandal led to increased public awareness of corruption within China's political elite and contributed to Xi's subsequent anti-corruption campaign. The case also highlighted the complex relationships between Chinese politicians, businessmen, and foreign interests. Bo's imprisonment marked the end of a particular style of flamboyant local leadership in China and reinforced the paramount importance of loyalty to the central government. 14. Eike Batista, net worth at peak, $30 billion. Once Brazil's richest man and the 7th wealthiest person globally, Eike Batista's rise and fall epitomizes the boom and bust cycle of commodity-based wealth. Through his EBX group, he built an empire spanning oil, mining, and logistics, promising to unlock Brazil's vast natural resources. His company's stock prices soared on ambitious projections, but when his oil wells proved less productive than claimed and commodity prices fell, his empire crumbled spectacularly. In 2017, he was arrested and later convicted of paying $16.5 million in bribes to government officials as part of Brazil's massive car wash corruption investigation. His case became symbolic of the intersection between business and political corruption in Brazil. Beyond his legal troubles, Batista's story represents one of the largest personal wealth destructions in history, with his net worth plunging from $30 billion to negative territory in just over a year. His downfall affected not just his companies, but also Brazil's reputation as an investment destination. The case exposed weaknesses in Brazil's corporate governance and the dangers of over-leveraged business empires built on speculative valuations. His imprisonment marked the end of an era of unbridled optimism about Brazil's economic potential. 13. Elizabeth Holmes, net worth at peak, $4.50 billion. Elizabeth Holmes's journey from celebrated entrepreneur to convicted fraudster represents a cautionary tale about Silicon Valley's fake-it-till-you-make-it culture. As founder of Theranos, she claimed to have revolutionized blood testing with technology that could run hundreds of tests from a few drops of blood. Her compelling personal story and vision attracted prestigious board members and billions in investment, making her the world's youngest self-made female billionaire. However, investigations revealed that Theranos' technology never worked as claimed, putting patients' health at risk. In 2022, she was convicted of defrauding investors and sentenced to over 11 years in prison. The case exposed the dangers of prioritizing storytelling over scientific validity in healthcare startups and the limitations of Silicon Valley's disruptive mentality when applied to medical technology. Holmes's downfall led to increased scrutiny of healthcare startups and their claims, particularly those led by charismatic founders. The scandal also highlighted issues of gender in tech, as discussions arose about whether Holmes had been judged more harshly than male counterparts. Her story has become a symbol of how ambition and deception can intertwine in the pursuit of innovation. 12. Joe Low, net worth at peak, $1.50 billion, estimated. While not technically in prison yet, Joe Low remains a fugitive from justice for his role in the 1MDB scandal, one of the largest financial frauds in history. As the alleged mastermind, Low helped divert billions from Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund into personal accounts, funding a lifestyle of extreme luxury and excess. Through complex financial structures and political connections, he orchestrated the transfer of billions of dollars, some of which financed Hollywood movies like The Wolf of Wall Street and purchased luxury real estate worldwide. The scandal led to the fall of Malaysia's former Prime Minister Najib Razak, who was sentenced to prison for his involvement. Low's case exposed weaknesses in the global financial system and the role of Western banks and institutions in enabling large-scale fraud. His extravagant spending, including gifting celebrities with millions in jewelry and hosting lavish parties, became symbolic of kleptocracy's excess. Despite international manhunts and red notices, Low remains at large, presumably protected by certain countries. The case has led to increased scrutiny of sovereign wealth funds and strengthened anti-money laundering regulations globally. His story highlights how political connections and financial complexity can be used to perpetrate massive fraud. 11. Jeffrey Epstein, net worth at peak, $1 billion. Jeffrey Epstein's case represents one of the darkest intersections of wealth, power, and criminal behavior. A financier who built his fortune through mysterious means and connections to elite circles, Epstein faced multiple allegations of sexual abuse and trafficking of minors. His first stint in prison in 2008 was notably lenient, highlighting how wealth could influence the justice system. His 2019 arrest on federal sex trafficking charges ended with his death in custody, leaving many questions unanswered. Beyond his crimes, Epstein's case exposed how wealth and connections could shield predatory behavior for decades. His relationships with prominent figures in business, politics, and academia raised uncomfortable questions about complicity and willful ignorance. The scandal led to increased scrutiny of how powerful individuals can exploit their positions and wealth to avoid consequences for criminal behavior. His death sparked numerous conspiracy theories and highlighted issues with the federal prison system. The case has had lasting implications for discussions about wealth, power, and accountability in American society. The exposure of his activities has led to broader conversations about human trafficking and the role of money in enabling and concealing criminal behavior. 10. Bernie Ebbers, net worth at peak, $1.40 billion. Bernie Ebbers' story represents the excesses of the 1990s telecom bubble and its aftermath. As CEO of WorldCom, he built the company through aggressive acquisitions into one of the world's largest telecommunications firms. However, when the tech bubble burst, WorldCom engaged in massive accounting fraud to hide its declining financial condition. The discovery of $11 billion in fraudulent accounting entries led to the largest bankruptcy in US history at that time. Ebbers was convicted in 2005 of fraud, conspiracy, and filing false documents, receiving a 25-year sentence. His case highlighted the dangers of unchecked corporate expansion and the pressure to maintain growth at any cost. The WorldCom scandal, along with Enron's collapse, led to significant reforms in corporate governance and accounting practices, including the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Ebbers' conviction marked one of the first times a major CEO faced serious prison time for financial fraud. His case became a symbol of corporate excess and the need for stronger oversight of public companies. The scandal affected tens of thousands of employees who lost jobs and retirement savings, demonstrating the real-world impact of corporate fraud on ordinary people. 9. John Kapoor, net worth at peak, $2.40 billion. John Kapoor's case exemplifies how the pursuit of profit in the pharmaceutical industry can lead to criminal behavior. As founder of Insys Therapeutics, he oversaw a scheme to bribe doctors to prescribe Subcease, a powerful fentanyl spray, to patients who didn't need it. His conviction in 2020 marked one of the first successful prosecutions of pharmaceutical executives for their role in the opioid crisis. Kapoor's case exposed the aggressive marketing tactics used by some pharmaceutical companies and the corruption of medical decision-making through financial incentives. The scandal revealed how companies could exploit the healthcare system to profit from addiction. His imprisonment sent a strong message about corporate accountability in the pharmaceutical industry. The case led to increased scrutiny of pharmaceutical marketing practices and stronger regulations around opioid prescriptions. Beyond the criminal aspects, the scandal highlighted the broader ethical issues in the pharmaceutical industry and the tension between profit motives and patient care. The collapse of Insys demonstrated how quickly a seemingly successful pharmaceutical company could unravel when built on illegal practices. His story serves as a warning about the dangers of prioritizing profits over public health. 8. Dennis Kozlowski, net worth at peak, $600 million. Dennis Kozlowski's case became synonymous with corporate excess and greed in the early 2000s. As CEO of Tyco International, he was known for his lavish lifestyle, including a $6,000 shower curtain and a $2 million birthday party for his wife in Sardinia, partly funded by company money. His conviction in 2005 for stealing hundreds of millions from Tyco through unauthorized bonuses and fraudulent stock sales resulted in an 8.33-year prison sentence. The case became emblematic of the era's corporate scandals and highlighted issues of executive compensation and corporate governance. Kozlowski's extravagant spending using company funds became a symbol of CEO excess and led to increased scrutiny of executive perks and expenses. His prosecution marked a shift in how society viewed white-collar crime, with prosecutors and judges becoming more willing to impose significant prison sentences on corporate executives. The scandal led to reforms in how boards oversee executive compensation and expenses. His case continues to be studied in business schools as an example of how corporate culture can enable and encourage illegal behavior when checks and balances fail. 7. Tom Petters, net worth at peak, $1.80 billion. Tom Petters orchestrated one of the largest Ponzi schemes in US history through his company, Petters Group Worldwide. He convinced investors he was buying and reselling consumer electronics to major retailers, but the transactions were largely fictional. The scheme collapsed in 2008, revealing $3.65 billion in fraud. Petters was sentenced to 50 years in prison, marking one of the harshest sentences for white-collar crime. His case exposed how Ponzi schemes could operate at massive scales even in seemingly legitimate businesses. The investigation revealed a complex web of fake purchase orders, forged documents, and money laundering that had fooled investors and auditors for years. The collapse affected numerous hedge funds and individual investors who had trusted in Petters' business acumen. His conviction led to increased scrutiny of investment schemes promising unusually consistent returns. The case highlighted the importance of due diligence and the dangers of relying too heavily on personal relationships in business dealings. The scandal also exposed weaknesses in how financial institutions verify the existence of underlying business transactions in lending decisions. 6. Hassan Nemazee, net worth at peak, $900 million. Iranian-American businessman Hassan Nemazee's fall from grace represents a classic case of high-level bank fraud. As a prominent Democratic Party fundraiser and businessman, he moved in elite political circles and served as finance chairman for Hillary Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign. His scheme involved creating elaborate fake documents to secure hundreds of millions in loans from major banks, including Bank of America and Citigroup. In 2010, he was sentenced to 12 years in prison for defrauding banks of $292 million. His case highlighted vulnerabilities in bank lending practices and the potential for sophisticated fraudsters to exploit them. The investigation revealed how Nemazee had maintained his fraud for years by using loans from one bank to pay off loans from others. His political connections and apparent success had helped shield his activities from scrutiny. The case led to changes in how banks verify collateral for large loans. His downfall affected both the financial and political worlds, leading to increased scrutiny of political donors' sources of wealth. The scandal demonstrated how white-collar criminals could use their social status and connections to perpetrate massive fraud while maintaining a facade of legitimacy. 5. Raj Gupta, net worth at peak, $1.20 billion. Former McKinsey head and Goldman Sachs board member Raj Gupta's conviction for insider trading marked a stunning fall for one of corporate America's most respected figures. His position on multiple corporate boards gave him access to confidential information, which he passed to Raj Rajaratnam. Found guilty in 2012, he served 2 years in prison, an unprecedented case of a major corporate director facing jail time for insider trading. His conviction sent shockwaves through corporate boardrooms and led to increased scrutiny of board members' trading activities. The case was particularly significant because of Gupta's stature in the business world and his reputation for integrity. His fall from grace highlighted how even the most respected business leaders could succumb to illegal behavior. The investigation revealed how casual conversations between board members and hedge fund managers could constitute serious securities violations. His case led to stronger policies regarding board member communications and trading restrictions. The scandal affected corporate governance practices across America, with companies implementing stricter controls on board member activities. His story serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of maintaining ethical standards regardless of one's position or achievements. 4. Sean Quinn, net worth at peak, $6 billion. Once Ireland's richest man, Sean Quinn's empire crumbled in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. Through Quinn Group, he built a conglomerate spanning insurance, hotels, and manufacturing. His downfall began with massive bets on Anglo-Irish bank shares through complex financial instruments. When the bank collapsed, Quinn lost billions and attempted to hide assets from creditors through international property transfers. In 2012, he served 9 weeks in prison for contempt of court related to these asset transfers. His case became symbolic of Ireland's boom and bust cycle and the dangers of over-leveraged investments. The collapse of his business empire had significant social and economic impacts in Ireland's border regions, where his companies were major employers. His legal battles with the Irish Bank Resolution Corporation continued for years, highlighting the complexity of international asset recovery. The case led to changes in how Irish banks handle large exposures to single borrowers. His story represents one of the largest destructions of personal wealth in Irish history and serves as a warning about the risks of concentrated investments and financial speculation. 3. Ding Yuxin, net worth at peak, $1.10 billion. Ding Yuxin's case exemplifies the intersection of business and corruption in China's railway sector. As chairwoman of Boyu Investment Management Group, she leveraged relationships with government officials to secure billions in railway construction contracts. Her close ties to former railway minister Liu Zhejun helped her amass enormous wealth, but led to her downfall when he was investigated for corruption. In 2014, she was sentenced to 20 years in prison and fined 2.5 billion yuan for bribery and illegal business activities. Her case exposed the extent of corruption in China's railway construction boom and led to major reforms in how contracts were awarded. The investigation revealed how she had acted as a power broker, facilitating bribes between businesses and government officials. The scandal contributed to increased scrutiny of private businesses' relationships with government departments. Her conviction marked a significant moment in China's anti-corruption campaign and highlighted the risks of building business success through political connections. The case led to stricter oversight of major infrastructure projects and changes in how state-owned enterprises interact with private businesses. 2. Joseph Nacchio, net worth at peak, $1.50 billion. Former Quest Communications CEO Joseph Nacchio's case highlights the dangers of insider trading during the telecom boom. Under his leadership, Quest engaged in aggressive accounting practices and network capacity swaps to inflate revenue. While publicly promoting the company's strong performance, he sold $52 million in stock, knowing that Quest would miss revenue targets. In 2007, he was convicted of 19 counts of insider trading and sentenced to 6 years in prison. His case became a landmark in the prosecution of executive stock sales based on inside information. The investigation revealed how telecom executives used complex transactions to create the appearance of growth during the industry's bubble. His conviction led to stronger regulations regarding executive stock sales and disclosure requirements. The scandal affected thousands of Quest employees and investors who lost significant portions of their retirement savings. His case contributed to reforms in how companies report revenue from long-term contracts and capacity swaps. The story serves as a warning about the risks of aggressive accounting practices and the importance of transparent corporate communications. 1. Seng, net worth at peak, $1.80 billion. Macau real estate billionaire. Ng Lap Seng's conviction represents a major case of corruption at the United Nations. Found guilty in 2017 of bribing UN officials to support building a conference center in Macau, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison and fined $1 million. His case exposed how wealthy individuals could attempt to buy influence within international organizations. The investigation revealed a complex scheme involving shell companies and multiple intermediaries to channel bribes to UN officials. His conviction led to reforms in how the UN handles development projects and relationships with private developers. The scandal affected the UN's reputation and led to increased scrutiny of its procurement processes. The case highlighted the challenges of maintaining integrity in international organizations when dealing with wealthy private interests. Prosecution represented a significant victory for US authorities in fighting international corruption and reinforced the reach of American anti-bribery laws.